Something that's always a lot of fun and very interesting when it comes to the Steam Next Fest is that a lot of developers out there are always willing to experiment, and that means we've got a bunch of space games here where the developers are testing out different angles and different approaches to what can make a space game fun, engaging, or even immersive. There's a whole selection of different titles here, and every single one of them has a demo available. So yeah, if you feel like trying out a few different space games at no cost to you whatsoever, now is the perfect time for that, and here are a few great examples. We'll start with Spacefleet Heat Death. This is a strategy RPG. It's a hybrid. It's set in the 23rd century, where orbital space is clogged with debris from constant conflict and competing factions. Now, it's all about competing fleet management here, orbital maneuvers, and full 3D combat. It's also mentioned there's a very heavy focus on heat here, such as managing power-hungry systems and keeping radiators intact. This is mentioned as essential to the game, and it makes sense with a title like Heat Death, right? Now, combat here uses lasers, railguns, missiles, alongside squadron-level command and damage control. Interestingly enough, there's also an economic layer to the game, which is, it's about taking on contracts, trading resources, gambling even, as well as hunting bounties. Now, the game here is also mentioned as being a proof of concept for a larger planned game that's called Spacefleet Soul. Right now, a standalone demo is available called Prometheus. This is available on Steam, and the store page also says that Heat Death will become a free-to-play game once the newer title Soul releases. Alliance Peacefighter drops you straight into the cockpit of an action-focused game. Think of the 1990s classics here, such as X-Wing and Wing Commander. And yes, that means a linear story with a lot of action and fighting here. So, set in space, obviously you've a combat fighter, and that means full control over the power of your ship, as well as shield distribution, as well as an interface meant to keep information quite readable as you're fighting. Now, a game like this lives or dies by its combat mechanics as well as its flight model, so hopefully this one's going to be very good indeed. Fortunately, there is a demo out there, so you can go and try this one right now for yourself. Between the various different action-packed missions, you'll find yourself at the bar. You can go out there and maybe get involved in a few side activities. The game itself is built for both VR as well as regular monitors, meaning you can just play this on your flat screen or jump in and get heavily immersed if you happen to have a VR headset to hand. Also, many of you, I'm sure, are going to be very happy to hear that this does support a full HOTAS setup as well. In addition to gamepads, if you prefer to lean that way, VR motion controllers does have support for that, as well as, of course, mouse and keyboard. In addition to this one having a demo for it, it's also fully available right now to purchase if you want to go down that route. SpaceCraft, meanwhile, is perhaps one of the largest titles in terms of scope and scale in this whole video, the whole list of games here. So you'll find yourself in first person in a little cabin on side a space station. You walk around the cabin, you can walk around the space station, you can get inside your spaceship, fly out into space, fly across the star system and down to the surface of planets, various different planets in fact. Here you can harvest different resources and use them to construct other modules, upgrade your ship, and many such things as that. So this is essentially a sandbox game that's built around movement, extraction, construction and logistics. You pilot your ship and travel between the systems with faster than light jumps and transition from space to planetary surfaces quite smoothly and seamlessly. Now, I'll be taking a much closer look at this game over the next few days, so do keep an eye out for that one. But essentially, what you got here is a game that really goes for scale and a sense of size. AESOS, a space yard, a spacecraft, manufacturing, a simulation, all of this from SF Factory. It's available on Steam as a part of the demo, and the idea here is about running a small company that designs and builds ships for your clients. From single-seat fighters to large cruisers, and then taking the helm yourself to prove these ships actually work. So yes, you become your very own test pilot. Now, it's not quite as straightforward as making a ship that just works, that just flies, because you're going to need to read the contract requirements. You're going to need to assemble ships from various different parts, and these would include cockpits, thrusters, and stabilization systems. In other words, if you meet the brief that was set to you by your client, you'll gain both credits and reputation. And those credits are used to expand your business, and that will include buying larger hangars. And it gets potentially really interesting in how you can test them out. The Steam page talks of flying through the rings of giant planets, carrying out tactical destruction of defined targets, or running a high-speed obstacle course to deliver a package. It seems then that the game is broken down into a number of parts, which includes a ship design, piloting through various different test levels, and they also talk of an upcoming story integrated into the game as well. As with all the games in this video, a demo is available right now, so do check out those links. Direco, this is somewhat psychological. Well, it's actually a psychological horror, and yes, it's billed as a walking simulator, but don't dismiss that outright because there's plenty of really good walking sims out there. The reason this is on this list is because it's set in deep space. Now, you take on the role of an astronaut on a routine mission. You're rerouted to investigate the research vessel Echo 7 after it goes silent. Turns out a geomagnetic storm is blamed for disrupted communications, but when you arrive, the ship looks functional from the outside and somewhat empty on the inside. Very strange. The focus is very much on atmosphere and exploration then, and you'll find yourself moving through deserted corridors, finding the scattered personal belongings and dealing with the feeling that you're not alone. Now, the visuals here, at least from what we can see on the trailer, are suitably fitting for this type of game, and there's somewhat of an oppressive sense of silence and isolation that comes across here. So if you're a fan of those old-school deep space horrors, then this could certainly be worth a look. Now, on the next game, it's called Orbital. There's not a lot to show on this one, but it does have some pretty chill visuals and some pretty interesting sound effects and audio on the trailer. But I'm concluding this because all of these games are indie-based and they're all about very different takes on what a space game can be. The idea here then is of a choice-driven game about exploring a forgotten solar system and guiding the growth of new settlements. On the face of it, it seems quite straightforward. When people are happy, growth continues, and when they're not, well, you intervene. The main event system seems to be text-based incidents which could range from shortages to cultural festivals to unusual stellar phenomena. So you'll have to deal with all of those things, but outside of those incidents, you'll be piloting a rocket to harvest tech from asteroid fields and then spending that tech on planetary upgrades, finding shipwrecks and running expeditions. Moving on, we come to low Earth orbit adventures. So here you begin as the sole employee of your own company with a single craft, the friendly low orbital tug or Fleot. Okay. It looks like the missions are going to be scenario-driven. The idea here is that you maneuver with Newtonian controls. You dock, attach tools via the International Docking Adapter, and complete various different tasks. These range from search and rescue to repairs to orbital boosts to inspections, deliveries, diplomatic incidents, and even demolitions. That said, there's no combat. The store page is very determined about that, very adamant. It says no guns, which is completely fair, but it seems like there could be a lot of fun to be had here. In fact, their approach is specifically based between realism and fun. They call it realism light. That means movement uses Newtonian physics and stations follow basic orbital mechanics, but distances are compressed down and propulsion is effectively unlimited, so fuel management is not a concern here. If this looks like fun to you, if it looks interesting, as with everything else here, it's certainly worth a try because it's not going to cost you anything to check out these demos. Sticking with the theme of spaceflight for now, we come to Artemis. This is Artemis VR. It is a VR-only spaceflight game, but this is supported by NASA resources and consultation relating to the Artemis missions, apparently, according to the information that's on Steam. So in terms of moment-to-moment gameplay, it's talking about here a mix of onboard procedures on the ship you're going to be flying and emergency response to all of that. Specifically, the idea here is extinguishing fires, managing decompression and caring for sick crew members along the way, alongside spacecraft maneuvers, docking at space stations and performing a spacewalk. So that gives us a bit of a feel of what to expect, although there's also some claims of dynamic mission scenarios. Not quite sure exactly what that would mean, but apparently that's in there as well. It also looks like a visit to the International Space Station is on the cards along the way. So definitely a title if you're into heavy immersion inside VR. Something far less serious is a Cyber Cleaner Simulator. This one absolutely looks quite funny, to be honest. It's a contract-based cleaning game. It's set in space, and you've been hired to clean up the messes left behind in space. And as space is a pretty big place, it means quite a range of different jobs, from orbital trash heaps abandoned moon bunkers and derelict stations. The moment-to-moment gameplay here, the tasks that you're going to find yourself in, are built around cleaning, dismantling and recycling. It looks like you're going to be able to travel between multiple different worlds for the contracts you're going to be taking up, and apparently that includes 8 different planets in total. And in case you're wondering, there's also some jobs out there about sterilising infested ships by burning alien nests. Between the different contracts, you're about to do some other things, which include managing your own ship, upgrading equipment, storing loot, and travelling between jobs as well. And also, you're accompanied by a robo-dog whose well-being you're going to need to maintain. A take on space then, that's not all too serious. Now, if you're into management games and growing colonies up in space, you could do a lot worse than trying out possible one, Lunar Industries. I actually did a full video on this game recently. That video is worth taking a look at if you haven't seen it yet. So your job is to establish a lunar colony and then build the infrastructure for your workers, your astronauts, that they need to survive up there on the moon's surface. And then turn those resources that you find up there into exploitable materials that you can send back to Earth. The game leads quite heavily into the realism side with technology that's available today to build your colonies up there. So no warp drives, no future fantastic sci-fi technology. The most technology you're going to be using here will be available today, and this keeps things pretty grounded. It's a very nice take on the genre and well worth looking at. The demo, of course, is available to try out. One of my favourite sci-fi stories of all time is Battlestar Galactica, both the original as well as the reboot that started in 2003, although that is my favourite one for the reboot. And that's where Scattered Hope comes in. This is a roguelite game based on the reboot, and it's set immediately after the Cylon attack on the 12 colonies. In the game, you take on the role of the commander of a gun star, and you're responsible here for guiding a fleet of survivors towards the Battlestar Galactica. Along the way, you'll encounter various different dilemmas and states that the Cylons will close in on, and each action you take will have an effect on the future of your fleet. Now, as you travel between planets and other points of interest, you're going to be presented with these dilemmas, and they force various different trade-offs, from rationing various different scarce resources to balancing the competing interests of factions on board the fleet. And of course, with the Cylon fleet hot on your heels and chasing you down all the time, there's going to be plenty of room for combat, which has a tactical focus. From what I can see, and this is one I certainly want to play a lot of, it seems to capture the feel and the vibe of the show very well indeed. So there we have it, a look at some rather interesting games on the Steam Next Fest, and I always really like seeing these type of titles and events because ultimately they give us a very different insight as to what a space game can be. Many of these developers are quite happy to reach out there and experiment and try something completely different. Let me know what titles stand out to you. Let me know if there's anything I missed, anything you'd like me to cover in the future in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.